The militarization of America's schools didn't happen overnight. It's a carefully constructed system that accelerated dramatically after September 11th. President George W. Bush revitalized the JROTC program just as the nation prepared for war in Afghanistan and Iraq. The military needed soldiers, but with armed conflict looming, volunteers were lacking. The solution: start earlier, much earlier. In Chicago, it's Colonel Baggio, retired after 33 years of military service, who oversees operations across the city. He's adamant about one thing: we're not recruiters. We're about citizenship, about teaching young boys and girls about service. But he admits they have to explain this regularly, almost defensively, because so many people, including teachers, don't believe them. The program is most popular in Chicago's toughest neighborhoods, places like Harlan High School and Finger High School on the south and west sides. Colonel Baggio calls JROTC the anti-gang, offering alternatives and opportunities for kids in areas where survival is a daily battle. The schools themselves are struggling. Chicago public schools face constant financial crises, closing 50 schools in recent years due to lack of funding. Principal Nancy Wiley of Hubbard High School is refreshingly candid about why JROTC is welcome. They're free teachers. We don't take our school money to pay them. They're retired military officers who come in and give back to the kids, paid through the ROTC program in the city. It's something we don't have to pay for. This creates a troubling equation. America spends approximately $60 billion annually on education, but $600 billion on the military. 10 times more. So when schools can't afford basic programs, the military fills the gap, bringing not just instructors but textbooks, uniforms, equipment, and summer camps, all at no cost to cash-strapped districts. At Hubbard High School, Colonel Wargo has supervised the program for 22 years. He's a Vietnam War veteran who sees himself in these students. They remind him of the blue-collar neighborhood he grew up in, a coal mining town in western Pennsylvania filled with carpenters, truck drivers, factory workers, and day laborers. He admits he's had gang members in the program and works to break them free from that influence. Though in some neighborhoods it's very difficult. His approach is both paternal and military. Performance affects not just grades but positions in the program. If cadets don't perform correctly, he'll fire them from their positions and take away their rank, using the military term, relieved of duties. The program doesn't only teach discipline. Students take courses in the history of armed forces, civics, and physical training. All textbooks are provided free by the Pentagon, which determines their content single-handedly. What worldview are these children absorbing? What version of American military history are they learning? The curriculum is entirely Pentagon-approved, with no civilian educational oversight. For Wargo, the pitch to students is pragmatic and appealing. Complete JROTC at the high school level, and if you meet requirements, you could get a full 4-year college scholarship. After graduation, you'd be commissioned as an officer in the Army, Air Force, or Navy, jobs that pay well. As Wargo points out, if you go to college the traditional way, there's no guarantee you'll get a job when you graduate. It's a compelling offer for students from neighborhoods where college seems financially impossible. Every Wednesday is inspection day at the school. Yasmin, now the leader of 380 cadets, conducts the inspection of troops. Students are disciplined for wearing book bags over their coats or letting their hair touch their ears. The atmosphere is military, strict, unified, demanding. Yasmin describes feeling like she's actually in the Army, not just at school. The program challenges shy students to step up to problems, bringing them out of their shells and giving them a confidence boost. For some students, the choice wasn't entirely voluntary. One cadet admits he was kind of forced into it because there wasn't space left in regular gym class. He wasn't interested at first, though it's become a little bit more interesting now. He still doesn't like the yelling. That's always going to be a problem. This reveals an important truth. Many students end up in JROTC not through passionate commitment to military service, but through the mundane realities of school scheduling and limited options. The program includes extensive before and after-school activities, giving the Army ample opportunity to introduce thousands of teenagers to military routine and its promises. Students drill, march, practice ceremonies, and absorb military culture for hours beyond the regular school day. This immersion is intentional, creating familiarity, comfort, and identity within military structures. Rory Fanning represents the voice of dissent in this system. After serving as an Army Ranger in Afghanistan, he became disillusioned with what he witnessed. He tells students that the vast majority of people who die in real war are civilians, unlike in Call of Duty video games. He asks, "Do you hear women and children screaming when they see their child die in Call of Duty? No. Can you turn off Call of Duty? Yeah. Well, you can't turn off war." His message is stark. By targeting so many innocent people, American military actions created the conditions for more terrorist attacks rather than preventing them. The statistics he cites are damning. Suicide bombings targeting U.S. interests increased ninefold after 2001. But he's lucky to speak at 3 schools per year, while military recruiters have systematic, twice-weekly access. Teachers don't want to rock the boat by bringing in someone critical of a program viewed as positive, especially in precarious work environments where job security is uncertain. Fanning points out that the military is filling gaps created by defunding education, particularly in poor neighborhoods. When Chicago closed 50 public schools claiming no money existed, the military stepped in to provide programming, structure, and resources. The demographics of JROTC enrollment reveal deep inequalities in American society. Ethnic statistics, prohibited in some countries, are starkly revealing in the United States. In Chicago, JROTC cadets are 54% Latino, 37% African American, and only 5% white. Yasmin's parents came from Mexico 30 years ago and run a small neighborhood event space. Yasmin helps them every night after classes. She dreams of multiple careers: social worker, designer, lawyer, because she likes exploring and doing many things simultaneously. She knows military service involves travel, which sounds awesome, but she doesn't think she could handle being away from home that long. When asked about recruitment patterns, she observes that maybe Latinos and African Americans feel more indebted to America, whereas Anglo-Saxons have always felt they're from here. Then she makes a striking statement: "I don't think it's good that there aren't more whites in the Army, because they should have to go overseas too. I mean, we should all be on equal ground as one race." This 17-year-old has identified the fundamental injustice at the heart of the system. The burden of military service falls disproportionately on communities of color and the poor. The geographical distribution of JROTC programs confirms this pattern. Montana has 1 school with the program. New Hampshire has 2. Both states are over 90% white. The Army primarily targets downtown ghettos, the declining industrial states of the Rust Belt, and especially the American South. Texas alone has more than 200 JROTC programs. The Fort Worth area has sent the most soldiers into combat since September 11th and suffered the most fatalities. The region's proximity to Fort Hood, the largest U.S. military base, creates an economy dependent on military and defense contractors as the main employers. In this environment, military service isn't just an option. It's the economic engine of entire communities. In Texas, the program goes further than elsewhere. Schools have shooting galleries where students learn to handle weapons. Every morning for an hour before school starts, 14-year-old Texans have shooting practice. The instructor insists the rifles are safe. They shoot pellets at 500 to 600 feet per second. When questioned about danger, he explains they're soft pellets and that the hope is students will go home and teach adults, because many adults don't know how to safely handle rifles. The normalization is complete. Middle schoolers training with weapons before algebra class, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance not just to the United States but to Texas itself, one state under God. The instructors speak to students about controlling fear, about Army values of courage, about doing what's right in the classroom and on the battlefield. When asked how many are interested in joining the military, hands shoot up. Students explain that other jobs would be boring, sitting in an office, but the military offers chances to help others and become better people. One student wants to give back to those who helped him, like his first sergeant-in-chief, to serve his family and country. Another has already enlisted and will ship off right after graduation. He's 17 years old, committed to 3 years with an option for 8 more through the Future Soldier program, which allows the Army to enlist adolescents before high school completion. Saul is dating a girl who's already an active-duty army soldier. He dreams of marrying her once he's deployed. Both military, both married. It's just more exciting. He's passionate about nice cars and saved money from working at a taco restaurant to buy his own. The army promised he'll become a tank driver. He'll miss his school, his memories, but he's proud of where he came from. Or at least, that's what he said 6 months before he disappeared. Military recruiters operate with sophisticated strategies. Staff Sergeant covers 19 different high schools and 5 colleges with 12 recruiters working beneath him. Each recruiter visits their assigned schools at least twice weekly. JROTC is their biggest asset. Instructors know exactly who recruiters are looking for. Since 2001, a federal law requires high schools to provide the Pentagon with contact information for all students or face denial of public funding. This allows recruiters to contact teenagers directly at home. The recruiter currently manages 53 future soldiers, though at one point he had 75. He describes it as challenging, especially with younger ones, keeping up with them, keeping them on track to do what they're supposed to do. Some parents are afraid, naturally, but recruiters assure them their children are in good hands. The recruiter's job is to convince 80,000 young people annually to join an army with presence in 146 countries worldwide. At Camp Rango, recruiters arrive on the last day with Latin music, country dancing, basketball, and football. Everything designed to appeal to Texas youth. One recruiter is explicit about the strategy. They're excited to see me. We built a relationship where we know each other. I'm not here asking for phone numbers today, but they will remember us. Another recruiter, himself a beneficiary of military opportunity, speaks passionately. The Army changed my life. I chose to be a recruiter so I can tell these kids, you don't have to stay in poverty, you don't have to stay in a bad situation. This is an escape. You can become a new person, a better version of yourself. I've been very successful in helping quite a few people, and I'm proud of that. His sincerity is evident, but so is the troubling implication. For poor youth, the military is positioned as the primary escape from poverty, rather than education, job training, or economic development. Mike Gwynn, now an actor in Fort Worth, understands this dynamic personally. He was a high-level pole vaulter whose athletic scholarship enabled college attendance. When injury ended his athletic career, he lost the scholarship and found no other way to stay in school except making a pact with the Pentagon. They'd pay for his remaining education in exchange for military enlistment upon graduation. Now he organizes resistance, running a parents' association for Fort Worth students worried about military presence in schools. He hosts slam poetry competitions where students express their frustration with recruitment pressure. He writes about the sickness in America, about peaceful vocations being drowned out by military imperatives. When President Trump speaks about bolstering the military, Mike worries about the real reasons: oil, commodities, ulterior motives disguised as patriotism. He felt something when George W. Bush spoke after September 11th because there seemed to be a common enemy and a focus on protection. He felt something when Obama spoke about healing America. But with Trump, he feels it's about empowering only part of America, and he doesn't necessarily agree with that. The students Mike works with are acutely aware of recruitment tactics. Allison's slam poem captures the predatory nature. Recruiters with sweet, clean faces telling her Iraq was awesome, milkshake Mondays and taco Tuesdays. She speaks of being born on July 4th, yet not knowing what it is about America that makes her wish on stars that aren't so red, white, and blue. She describes people mispronouncing her last name, as if they've been eating quesadillas their whole lives, as if my last name was just too hard to swallow. Her driver's ed instructor Bill once had a son who went overseas, and no matter how American Bill is, he knows there's no bringing him back. Allison urges Bill to check his blind spot because there's a war in his backyard. Black people, white people, yellow people, and brown people fighting racism, and America could use saving. She's sorry about Bill's son who died trying to make America great again. When ROTC recruiters told her Iraq was awesome, she understood the trap. Once you're in, there's no saying no, no having an opinion. You can't say you don't want to kill someone because it feels wrong. You'll be sent to jail or killed yourself. And all you have to do to put yourself in that position is be a 16-year-old in a classroom getting told that Iraq was awesome. Allison only shares this performance with family and friends, fearing marginalization and accusations of being unpatriotic. She observes that recruiters don't visit higher-level classes because they assume those students will go to college, that they're not desperate. They target Hispanic students overwhelmingly, pretty much all of them, going to minorities with the message, "We'll help you if you help us." Students with immigrant parents feel particular pressure. Their parents brought them to America for a better life, so they search desperately for ways to better themselves and make their parents proud. JROTC becomes the easy path, the visible path, the one that makes immigrant families feel they belong, that they're American, that they won't be kicked out. Students hear rumors: if you serve in the military, they'll prioritize your citizenship application. These things aren't true, but desperate hope makes them believable. With Trump's election, new fears emerged among these students. They worry about war constantly. One student lives near an Air Force base and sees military planes flying everywhere. Every time she sees them now, she thinks, "I really hope they're just delivering stuff and everything's okay." Because Trump scares her. She immediately wonders, did he do something? Is something happening? She sees him making someone mad and problems starting. This anxiety pervades young lives already burdened by economic precarity and social marginalization. Camp Rango represents the culmination of the recruitment pipeline. Taking place every summer at the end of the school year, it's mandatory wherever the Pentagon proposes an Army elective. The camp occupies a former nature observation station transformed 4 years ago into a military facility for children. At 5 a.m., the sun rises on 252 teenagers aged 14 to 17, handpicked as the best cadets in Fort Worth and surrounding areas. For 5 days, they'll experience total military immersion. The instructors frame it as teaching awareness of danger in wilderness compared to urban environments, building confidence, skills, teamwork, and preparation for the next school year. Most teenagers wear camouflage uniforms for the first time in their lives, the ones they've seen on American heroes in television, movies, and video games. They climb obstacle courses, zip line over forests, complete team challenges. One girl cries going up and coming down the zip line but completes it anyway. Instructors emphasize pride in wearing the uniform. U.S. service members wear that uniform, they represent our country, just like the flag and the bald eagle. Students should be honored to put on the cloth of America. Parents attend for half a day, participating in the same activities alongside their children. The Army carefully cultivates parental approval, demonstrating that teenagers are well cared for and supervised. One mother describes her emotional response. "A little emotional, and of course I'm not always far away from them, so I know this is also training for us when they enlist." Another parent whose daughter started JROTC because no other class was available initially thought it was the worst thing ever, but now sees her daughter has turned it around. She admits trying to discourage her daughter, but the more I discouraged her, the more she wanted to do it. So now she says nothing, just worries privately. The psychological manipulation is sophisticated, creating experiences that bond teenagers to military identity, normalizing military culture, and securing parental consent through controlled exposure and appeals to pride. On the final day, Pentagon recruiters arrive with entertainment, Latin music, country dance, basketball, football, designed to be remembered. One recruiter states explicitly, "Absolutely, the Army changed my life. It gave my children opportunities they wouldn't have had. I chose to be a recruiter to tell these kids, this is a way to go, you don't have to stay in poverty, you can change your entire life, become a better version of yourself. I've helped quite a few people and I'm proud of that." This narrative frames military service as salvation from poverty rather than addressing why poverty exists in the first place, why education is underfunded, why economic opportunity is so limited for certain communities that military enlistment becomes the most viable path forward. Several hundred Fort Worth high school students join the Army each summer after obtaining diplomas. But not everyone follows through. Saul's disappearance haunts his former instructors and recruiters. He was supposed to join Fort Jackson in North Carolina, but he never showed up. He's not answering calls from anyone, recruiters, his former teacher, peers. His family presumably knows his whereabouts, but they're not telling. The instructor describes Saul as a leader, not a follower, someone who wanted to lead, who breathed the army until the very last minute. He gave no indication of doubt or second thoughts. The instructor seems genuinely baffled. If he had issues going on, he certainly didn't express that vocally to me. When asked if Saul was too young to join the army, the instructor responds, "No. I was very young when I joined." Yes, he was young, but not to join the military. Maybe a little bit of maturity. That pause, maybe a little bit of maturity, hangs in the air. An unintentional admission that perhaps 17 is too young to commit to military service, too young to fully understand what that commitment means. Saul's story remains unresolved, a disappearance that troubles the smooth narrative of JROTC as positive youth development. What happened to this teenager who loved nice cars and his soldier girlfriend? Did he realize at the last moment that he couldn't go through with it? Did fear overcome him? Did he come to understand something about war that the recruiters and instructors never told him? His silence is its own testimony. Meanwhile, Yasmin approaches her own crossroads with clearer eyes. Her parents were initially supportive of military service. They told her she'd do great, she'd love it. But when she expressed interest in law school instead, they were initially upset before recognizing her genuine passion. Her father reflects on this with remarkable grace. "I was afraid she would want to join the army, but I would have supported her. I know we all have a mission in life. If that had been her decision, if it's what she really wanted to do, I wouldn't have had any other choice but to support her." This immigrant father's love and respect for his daughter's autonomy stands in stark contrast to the institutional pressures surrounding her. Yasmin returns her uniform for the last time. No more inspections, different rules ahead. She's graduating, leaving behind 4 years spent with the army. Now she's alone with her dreams, straightening her hair for the ceremony, excited to wear a dress instead of camouflage. The graduation takes place downtown, which feels significant to Southside students. You're kind of used to everything being cramped up or not looking really nice, and then in downtown there's this huge auditorium with a bunch of lights and you feel like a princess or something because you're going to a place that's really nice that you're not used to seeing every day. This simple statement reveals the geographic and economic segregation that makes military service appealing. Downtown Chicago with its gleaming auditoriums feels like another world to teenagers from poor neighborhoods. The student commencement speech directly addresses political uncertainty. "I'd like to reminisce on our time at Hubbard High School, a time in which we experienced significant change. This change cannot be properly categorized as a roller coaster, but the emotions range from the feeling of hope we had as freshmen. Yes, we can, to the uncertain future we now live in under the process of making America great again." The speaker continues, "The uncertainty in today's world is exactly why we are gathered here. On this stage, on these seats, lies the future of the United States, the future of the world." Yes, it sounds extremely far-fetched to say that we students from a neighborhood high school on the southwest side of Chicago can go out there and change the world. But somebody has to be responsible for changing the world. So why can't it be us? As a matter of fact, it has to be us. This is both inspiring and heartbreaking. These teenagers burdened with saving a world that has systematically failed them. A world that offers them military service as the primary path to dignity and opportunity. For Colonel Wargo, watching from the audience, this is the family's time, their time. We've gotten this far. He admits there are always special cadets he'll miss, and others he's just here to make sure they walk across the stage and leave. But overall, it's a sense of accomplishment. I'm happy to see them going on to their future because that's what we trained them to do. Yasmin's father, watching his daughter graduate, speaks of the American dream with profound emotion. The American dream speaks to those of us who came from other countries and still managed to accomplish things working with only our bare hands. We managed to do a lot, and one of the greatest satisfactions is a night like this. To see our children succeed and have a better life than ours, the life we came so far for them to have. For Yasmin herself, graduation brings mixed feelings and new determination. She knows she'll always wonder, what would it have been like if I was in the army? Where would I be right now? But Trump's presidency crystallized her purpose. It was that little spark I needed to fully decide I wanted to become an immigration attorney. I believe being a lawyer is something that's really necessary now, especially to represent the minorities, to help them and make sure they're not separated, to be able to fight for a chance for them to have a better life here. I think that's what makes America, America. She has chosen to fight for her community not through military service but through law, through justice, through advocacy for those most vulnerable to the very forces that push young people into uniform. The program continues, relentless and expanding. After high school, 40% of young JROTC members enlist in the military, 200,000 teenagers annually, drawn overwhelmingly from America's poorest communities and minority populations, stepping into uniform to defend a nation that has offered them so few other paths to opportunity, education, and escape from poverty. The final scene shows instructors already preparing for the next year, already identifying which cadets might be ready to ship out, already making sure diplomas are turned in for those enlisting. The cycle continues generation after generation, war after war, creating what one scholar called a poverty draft. Not legally mandatory service, but economically coerced participation in a military system that promises what civilian society has failed to deliver. Education, healthcare, job training, purpose, belonging, and a chance at the American dream. The question that haunts this entire system remains unanswered and perhaps unanswerable within current structures. In a nation wealthy enough to spend $600 billion annually on military might but only $60 billion on education, in a nation that doesn't legally require military service, why does the burden of defending it and dying for it fall so disproportionately and so devastatingly on the young, the poor, the black, and the brown? This is not simply a question of recruitment tactics or program design. It is a question about the soul of America, about which lives are considered valuable, about which children deserve futures beyond camouflage and combat, about whether the land of opportunity offers genuine opportunity or merely the opportunity to enlist. And until that question is confronted honestly and answered with systemic change rather than patriotic platitudes, thousands of teenagers will continue waking at 4:30 a.m. to put on uniforms, will continue drilling in school hallways, will continue attending summer boot camps, will continue hearing that Iraq was awesome, will continue enlisting, will continue deploying, will continue dying, while wealthier, whiter children in states like Montana and New Hampshire pursue futures that never require them to choose between poverty and military service, between college debt and combat deployment, between their dreams and their survival.